From New York, this is the Harvey Hour. My name's Nathan Harvey. It's great to have you in on a Tuesday. As always, I'm joined alongside my dad, Stephen Harvey. How are you doing today on this Tuesday?
Very happy today. Looking forward to a great show. We got some really good topics today.
You know, we do have a lot to talk about. It's going to be a phenomenal show. A lot about college quarterbacks, and one in particular that is, for the past week, been throughout the news on many different aspects, especially today with the report that came out. But let's start with what happened over the weekend. The New York Giants had a private meeting with Michigan quarterback J.J. McCarthy. This is a quarterback that potentially could replace Daniel Jones at some point in the near future if the Giants decide to maybe they have to trade up to get him. If, I don't know, maybe the Patriots or if the Broncos or the Vikings jump the Giants, they might be in a situation where they can't draft a guy that they are investing heavily into. Now, they went to his pro day. The GM, as well as Brian Daboll, went to his pro day, and then they also held a private workout with J.J. McCarthy over this past weekend. So I want to know, we've seen Daniel Jones for the past 5 seasons, and he signed a contract where basically, if he doesn't get hurt, it's going to be minimal damages, punitive damages, to get rid of him at the end of this season. Do you think the Giants would be making the right move by drafting J.J. McCarthy if they're able to get him at the number 6 overall draft pick?
I think they're going to go for a quarterback.
Okay.
I really do. And I think they like McCarthy. I think McCarthy owes a lot to Jim Harbaugh, who said he's the best quarterback ever, or something like that. At least he's at Michigan. Yeah. Well, that's a little bit of a diss to Tom Brady, maybe, right? But he did say he's great. I think that helped his stock a lot. Now that we're getting closer to the draft, it seems to be he's getting a lot of hype. And he may not be there at number 6. I think there's a possibility he won't be, because now he's looking like he's in the top 4, at least, maybe in the top 3, depending on how you view Drake May, right? Drake May's stock has dropped a little bit, maybe, and maybe McCarthy's moved up into that number 3 spot. We're going to be talking about the Patriots, and their GM is pushing hard for McCarthy now. So I don't see the Giants moving up in the draft. I don't think they would try to trade up.
I don't know.
But given that they're at number 6, they did have they went to his pro day. As you said, they met with him, I think, like 4 times. They're not too happy that this information has been leaked, as I understand it. You look at McCarthy, he is a winner. Right? He was 26-3 in high school. He was 8-0 at IMG Academy. That's all about football. He won a national championship at IMG Academy. He was 27-1 at Michigan and won a national championship there. His some of his stats look pretty good. His scramble, when the play breaks down, he has a 71% completion percentage on that when the play breaks down. That's way higher than anybody else. Nick's is second with 58.6. So, he's somebody that can make something out of a play that's broken down. His big time throw percentage, not so great. He's down there at 1, 2, 3, 4. He's number 5 with Daniels at the top at 8.4%, May 7.5, Penix 7.3, Williams 6.2, and McCarthy at 6%. His stats in 2023, 72% percentage completion, almost 3,000 yards passing, and 22 TDs to only 4 interceptions. So he's got some stats that look pretty decent. I think that one of the things that's a question mark with him, he's always played with great talent. He's always had great talent around him. Michigan, there are tons of great talent around him. I understand at his high school and also at IMG Academy, there was great talent around him. Maybe he's another Mac Jones, who had great talent around him at Alabama and was very serviceable there. Once he got to the Patriots, where they didn't have the receivers who could separate, didn't have an offensive line that could block for him, could give him protection in the pocket, he fell apart, and he couldn't play under pressure. So I don't know whether McCarthy's a quarterback like that or not. We'll have to wait and see. But that's my take on him.
I said during the college football playoff that I said he has talent, but to say that he's, one of these top picks, I didn't fully agree with that. And while the numbers, and you mentioned it, I believe he has the highest, when the pocket breaks down to extend plays, he has the highest completion percentage in that category. His entire college career, I would say, has been a little bit babied, should we say, a little bit too perfect. The system, I said this from the very beginning, I think he'll be as good, however good the system is around him. Because this season, while yes, he did have a 72% completion percentage, he had sub 3,000 yards. And yes, he only had 4 interceptions, but he also had 22 touchdowns. Who was like the main piece of the Michigan offense? It's Blake Corum. He had 2,500 total yards. He had 27 rushing touchdowns and a receiving touchdown. 1,300 total yards with 28 total touchdowns. I read that stat wrong. But Blake Corum, we saw in the playoff, he was incredibly productive. He was the guy, especially in the national championship. What, did J.J. McCarthy have 170 yards? Wasn't that good. In his college career, J.J. McCarthy averages 155 passing yards a game on only 17.8 pass attempts per game. His completion percentage is high for his career. It's 67.9, but only 49 touchdowns in his entire collegiate career. It's a little bit more than 1 per game. And and his odds move from plus 3,500 to plus 275. And this was mainly after his pro day, where he literally replicated a Zach Wilson throw. And everyone was, gawking over what an amazing throw that was. And look how Zach Wilson ended up. Now, I understand. I don't believe J.J. McCarthy will turn into Zach Wilson, but it's kind of funny how those two, time frames set him perfectly. It seemed like the Jets really set in stone selecting Zach Wilson. Everybody was going crazy over the pro day with Zach Wilson, and that one deep throw that he had when he was rolling out to his left, J.J. McCarthy made it, and the internet, rightfully so, said this might be another Zach Wilson, and the odds jumped from plus 3,500 to plus 275. I don't personally get it. Now, when it comes to the Giants, they had one of the worst offenses this season. Totally, their total offensive rating, according to PFF, was 31st. Passing-wise, they were 20th. Tommy DeVito and Tyrod Taylor had some help with that because we for damn sure know that Daniel Jones did nothing. Pass blocking, dead last. Receiver core rating, dead last. Running game rating, second to last. Their offense was horrible. And run block rating, that was 30th. Their offense was terrible. So I think, based on the way that Jim Harbaugh, I think he's going to be a great coach. He was already a great coach in the NFL. He goes into Michigan, revitalizes that culture. He couldn't beat Ohio State for the life and for the large part of his college coaching career, but finally does it and then wins a national championship. And then he's going to a Chargers team where they're kind of molding a, ground and pound, hard physical team, I believe. And the system around him was really good. I think if you go to a poor team and you're a college quarterback who, let's be honest, if you're averaging 17 pass attempts a game in your college career, your team didn't really rely on you. So if you're required to be relied on and you're the New York Giants, I just don't think that's going to work out very well.
Yeah, well, I think one thing in McCarthy's defense, he didn't really get to show maybe everything that he had when he was at Michigan because they did have Corum, and they did emphasize the run. And as you point out, he only had average 17 attempts a game. That's not very many for a guy that you're looking for in the NFL where it's a passing game and you're looking for somebody who can really light it up. You don't really know with him because he wasn't given the opportunity to really light it up. They didn't need to. They had a great running game. They had other things. They played good defense. They won another way. So that's a little bit of a question mark, I think, whether he's really shown everything he has. He may have more to offer, but would you bet that? Do you want to risk that on a number 3 pick or a number 6 pick? I don't know. That's a tough decision, I think.
Well, and I would feel a little bit more confident saying this won't be a bad idea because the Giants have Saquon, but they don't anymore. They right now have Devin Singletary to be their running back. So even if you want to sort of test the waters, and let's say you do draft J.J. McCarthy let's say you can get him at 6. He doesn't you won't have a balanced offense. It'll be you're relying on the run too much or you're relying on the pass too much. And normally, if that's the case, if there has to be one or the other, normally you don't run the ball only exclusively. Normally you have some sort of a balanced offense if you're able to run the ball at all. And with the Giants offensive line, now they got a couple pieces there, but right now the Giants have built defense. They traded for Brian Burns, yet they really have no receivers. They're tied. Darren Waller, like I said before, he's still mentioning retirement. No running back really. Quarterback is still a complete mess. Are you going to go Tommy DeVito, Drew Lock, Daniel Jones, rookie quarterback? Like the Giants offensively are horrible. Now, they can't fix it all in one draft. It's nearly impossible to do that. And that's not only for the Giants, that's for any team to fix an entire roster or at least one entire side of the ball unless you somehow find a bunch of diamonds in the rough, which I guess some GMs have the ability to do. But normally, that doesn't happen in the NFL where you could fix one side of the ball in a singular draft.
I think Brian Daboll's job's at risk this year. I really do.
That would not surprise me.
The over-under is 6.5 for them. If I had to guess, I'd say under on them. I really don't see they've got much. The offense, without Saquon Barkley, the best player they had, he's gone. Devin Singletary coming in, he's a journeyman. He's not a elite running back. I don't think, right? He's a journeyman. This is his third team. So their offensive line, very poor last year. They tried to strengthen it. We'll see. And they're going to look to take a quarterback. I'm pretty sure. So if Daniel Jones plays okay, then this young quarterback won't get in there. So that's like almost a wasted pick at number 6. And when you need lots of other stuff, so I think that the Giants are going to have a miserable season. Personally, we haven't got to our picks for the NFL.
It's coming in a week.
It's coming up for our picks, but for the season. I see them being in last place in their division.
Oh, I think that's a given. Yeah. Every team, including the Commanders, once they're done drafting, because they're going to draft the next franchise quarterback, probably it's a 99.9% chance they draft a quarterback at number 2. I think they're going to be better than the Giants will. I think the Giants will be in last place in the NFC East. I think that's a given at this point. But here's the thing.
I worry about Brian Daboll a little bit. Man, like he's way overweight there, and he gets all upset on the sidelines. So this year, if he knows his job is in jeopardy, who knows? I worry about his health a little bit. He's better calm down, big guy. Calm down, big guy. He goes nuts on the sidelines, yelling at the quarterbacks, yelling at people.
Daniel Jones, he's not good.
I mean, they lost to Wink Martindale because he was so abusive to him.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Come on. You're the head coach. Chill.
Well, I could understand it at some point if you have Daniel Jones, who you just paid, it was this season, where you just paid him, that for he was $82 million fully guaranteed, as well as you're paying him $40 million a year. I'd be frustrated, too, if he threw a 97-yard pick 6 to Devin Witherspoon. I'd be mad, too.
Yeah.
I'd be mad. I'd also not only be mad at Daniel Jones, but in that game alone, by the way, the Seahawks were very, very disappointing defensively this season. You got sacked, I believe the total number, because I think they brought in the backup at some point. I think in total, the Giants quarterbacks got sacked 11 times in that game. The offense was just horrible. And that's why I think if we're being honest about this, J.J. McCarthy, I think he is a system quarterback. Now, does that mean he's not talented? No. I think he is one of the better quarterbacks, and he's not afraid to throw into tight windows, which if you have a poor team like the Giants or like any one of these other bad teams, the Vikings, I think, probably are the best situation for him, just because I think Kevin O'Connell is a really, really good offensive coach. I mean, he made Kirk Cousins look pretty decent. Kirk Cousins has his own flaws, and I think they'll continue in Atlanta, but it was comparable. It was okay. Like Kirk Cousins became a top-tier quarterback, and this season it looked like he was sort of on the verge of keeping a top 10 quarterback status with the amount of production he got. Then he got hurt, and obviously you have to drop him out of the top 10. But I think if any quarterback who, basically, if you're not Caleb Williams, I think any quarterback with the way the Giants are constructed right now, they're going to suffer immensely. So for me, and it's a little bit of a hint at my mock draft next week, the Giants need to go with a talent piece, not a quarterback, a talent piece. Now, whether you say that's offensive line, which I think is a fine choice if you want to go get Joe Alt and steal him away from someone like the Tennessee Titans or Olu Fashanu or any one of these and then Talese, and I'm forgetting his last name, the tackle from Oregon State. You can get any one of these guys, and it'll help your offensive line immensely to pair him up with Andrew Thomas. But you also have a massive gap at a true deadly wide receiver one that teams are like, this rookie, we have to start game planning for him. Because if you have to game plan for one guy, double team him, that opens other things for the rest of the field, whether it's in the passing game or whether it's in the run game. So I'm hinting at it right now. For me personally, I'm not saying the Giants should draft a quarterback because no matter what the situation is, the Giants, people were calling Daniel Jones a top 10 quarterback 2 years ago. They go out and get more pieces with Darren Waller. They go draft Jalen Hyatt. Daniel Jones regresses to pre-contract. To the first 3-4 years of his career where he was one of the worst quarterbacks in the NFL. And add on top of that, he's injury prone. So regardless of what they do, if Daniel Jones is a starter quarterback for the rest of the season, I think they'll still have an opportunity to maybe draft Shedeur Sanders or Quinn Ewers or any one of the top quarterbacks in next year's class. So build up for the future. Don't build for right now because you ain't going to win nothing right now.
Yeah.
Like the Vikings, for instance, they need a quarterback because they have a lot of pieces. TJ Hawkinson, they have Aaron Jones, they have Justin Jefferson. You have pieces. Your defense, there's a couple pieces there that are not horrible. Jordan Addison as well. You have pieces there. Yeah. So getting a quarterback helps you. The Jets, for instance, immensely talented. What do? They trade for Aaron Rodgers.
Yeah, I predict the Giants. I agree with you, by the way. I think getting the talent piece is the better option for them, but I bet you they draft a quarterback. It's in New York, and they like the hype.
That's true.
And having him on the bench there, waiting and seeing Daniel Jones out there fumbling the ball and throwing interceptions, they're going to be wanting the rookie to come in there and see what he can do. And there's going to be, if you look at the 4 top quarterbacks, you say Caleb Williams is 1, Daniels maybe number 2. It's either Drake May and now J.J. McCarthy. They think he's up there. That's 4 quarterbacks. I would say one of them is going to be. Well, I don't think Caleb Williams or Jalen Daniels will be there, but either Drake May or McCarthy are going to be there at 6. I think because it depends on what the Patriots do.
Yeah,
we're going to talk about that, but. And maybe the Patriots ought to take the same advice you just gave the Giants. Go for a talent piece, right? Because you're going to have the best player in the draft available at number 3 in Harrison. So might be wise to do that. When's the last time the Patriots had an elite wide receiver? Long time ago.
Are we talking legitimately elite or Brady made him look elite?
Well, I think Randy Moss was an elite receiver.
I was going to say, right, but like Julian Edelman was a great receiver.
And
he's
Julian
not elite,
Edelman.
Brady made him elite.
Yeah.
Randy Moss was a legitimate elite wide receiver.
Yeah. He had all the talent. I don't think Edelman didn't have the physical talents that Moss had.
Right. But like you can call Gronk if people include Travis Kelce in the elite receiver category,
then Gronk
you could say
is in
Gronk.
there,
You could say Gronk. I think that would be a fair point. Let's talk about this, and we talked about it on Friday. So after Ian Rappaport dropped the bombshell that it looks like the Cowboys will not be, giving an contract extension to Dak Prescott before the season starts, and no deal, is coming. Basically, that's the indication. A couple Cowboys insiders discussed the possibility that this could be Dak Prescott's last ride as the starting quarterback of the Dallas Cowboys. So I want to know, definite answer right now. If you had to, look through the crystal ball in the 2025 offseason, will Dak Prescott be the starting quarterback? Will he get an extension and remain the starting quarterback for the Cowboys?
Yes.
Okay. You think so?
Oh, yeah, I think so. I think this is all hype. I think it's a marketing thing to keep the Cowboys in the press and in front of the fans during the offseason and create maybe a little bit of a controversy. But you look at the numbers. Dak Prescott has a $59 million cap hit.
Yeah. Right?
They need to spread that out. The only way they can do that is extend him. The Cowboys talk tough during the offseason. They always cave, right? Zeke Elliott, right? They gave him a big contract after they said, well, we probably won't re-sign him. He wound up with a big contract. Micah Parsons, they talk tough about him. He's wound up with an extension and a big contract. So I think that they're going to give him an extension. When you look at the quarterbacks out there, you look at what happened to Kirk Cousins, right? Here's a guy. He's 4 or 5 years older than Dak Prescott. He just had a major injury with an Achilles tear. He got a huge contract from Atlanta. It's because elite quarterbacks, great quarterbacks, are very hard to find. And you look at Dak Prescott in the regular season, he's one of the best, right? He has 12 wins 3 years in a row. That's tough to do. He may have stunk in the playoffs, but it's not all on him. I'd say the coaching, too. Mike McCarthy's been a horrible coach in the playoffs. And I wouldn't put it all on Dak Prescott. You look at his stats, 4,500 yards, 36 touchdowns, 9 interceptions. He was second in the MVP voting. He has another season like that, and he's not. The Cowboys haven't locked him up. He'll get the highest contract in NFL history. I guarantee it. Somebody will give it to him because great quarterbacks are hard to find, and in the regular season, he's one of the best. He gets them to the playoffs. He needs different coaching maybe to do better in the playoffs. So I think that he's going to be re-signed.
My question when it comes to the Dallas Cowboys, and my question to you is, what are the Cowboys expecting to be in 2024? Because Jerry Jones keeps saying, we're all in. We're all in with the core group of players we have. What are the Cowboys expecting to do before I jump into my rant? What do you think the Cowboys are expecting?
I think they're expected to get to the NFC Championship game, if not the Super Bowl. That's what Jerry Jones is going to expect.
I would say they're Super Bowl or bust because they're the Dallas Cowboys.
I think if they get to the NFC Championship game and lose a close game, I think those guys are all safe. I really do. I think even Mike McCarthy, I think they bring him back too.
We'll see what the result is, but when it comes to Dak Prescott, and I mentioned this before, is the definition of insanity, or one of them at least, is doing the exact same thing and expecting a different outcome. So why is this Why is this the same? Or why is this any different, rather? The Cowboys, based on my predictions and based on the way history tells us, the past 3 seasons actually have been the Cowboys are going to win 12 games. They're going to make it to the playoffs depending on how the Eagles play or if the Commanders shock the world and somehow are competitive at the top of the NFC East. They might be the first spot in the NFC East, whether that be the first to the 4th seed or whatever the case may be, or if they're the 2nd seed in the NFC East and they can get one of the wild card spots, they get to the playoffs, and then lo and behold, they probably lose in the first round. That's what happens. That has been the Dallas Cowboys for a number of years. I think what's going to maybe make things difficult for the Cowboys if they do decide they want to stick with Dak Prescott is the contractual obligation that Dak's expecting. Because with the way some analysts and some reporters have sort of expected Dak's contract to be is in the area of starting at $59 million all the way up to over $60 million. Which is ridiculous. Now, the market obviously has gotten much bigger as each year progresses, and you have more endorsements and ad deals and a bunch of other deals like TV deals and whatnot. But what are the expectations for a guy who hasn't done much in the totality of his NFL career, who has the worst playoff winning percentage, a minimum of 5 games played in NFL history? He's terrible in the playoffs. You could talk about the defense, but against the best team in the NFL, or at least the deepest team in the NFL for the past couple of years, the San Francisco 49ers, Dak plays horrible, and not this past season, but the year before, that offense that averaged 30 points, I think it was near 30 points a game, the Dallas Cowboys defense held them to 19 points. Brock Purdy, who was undefeated at that time, held that offense to 19 points. Dak threw 2 early interceptions that screwed over the rest of the game. So the expectation has to be Kirk Cousins because they are one and the same quarterback. Since Dak got to Minnesota, and sorry for the audio listeners on Spotify, I'll read the numbers to you. 51 wins to 50 in favor of Dak. Completion percentage is basically the same. Each have essentially 67 or 68% completion percentage. Yards per game, Dak has 10 more. But they're basically the same. The touchdown-interception ratio, and we always clown on Kirk Cousins for being horrible outside of 1 p.m., he's actually better in the touchdown-to-interception ratio, 171 and 55 to 157 and 57 touchdown-interceptions. Passing yards per attempt, Dak's better by 0.1, and then passer rating, Kirk is better by a singular point. They are shockingly similar, yet one guy just made $45 million a year after coming off of an injury, and Dak Prescott, who dealt with a horrific injury, probably near career-threatening injury, is potentially getting $59 or $60+ million. Now, Spot Track actually has Dak's expected market value to be a 4-year contract averaging $50.8 million. That's closer because you're not the highest paid quarterback in NFL history. You don't have the biggest contract ever in NFL history. And that's exactly what you should expect to be. I think, and regardless how the market looks, you cannot pay a quarterback who chokes in the biggest moments, who is a massive deficiency to your team. You can't pay him like the best quarterback in the NFL. That's Mahomes money. That's if Joe Burrow was healthy. That's Joe Burrow money. That could be 2-time MVP Lamar Jackson money. That isn't Dak Prescott. So the expectation is you're not winning the Super Bowl. It's going to be the same thing. 12 wins. You're going to make the playoffs. You're going to lose in a horrific fashion, an embarrassing fashion. Whether that's a QB drawn up by Mike McCarthy, or if that's an too many interceptions and not enough offense when it matters.
You know what? You might be right. Maybe you're
I feel
right.
good about that.
But you might not be. Okay? And if you're not, and the Cowboys get to the NFC Championship game, okay? And even if they lose.
Okay.
And if they lose by a respectable margin, right? It's a close game, and they lose it by a field goal, maybe.
Okay.
Okay? The Cowboys are going to be damn sorry they didn't extend Dak Prescott because Dak Prescott's going to get big money. He's going to get big money. And I think the Cowboys, what they should do this year, their offense isn't tough enough, okay? They need an offense that's tougher. They need to have a runner like Derrick Henry, like when the Titans were in their prime, right, with him pounding the ball into the offensive line there and beating up the defense. And by the fourth quarter, they're just they're on, the defense is on fumes, and he's still going. They need a runner like that, and that's something they haven't had. And I think in the playoffs, it would take a lot of pressure off Dak Prescott if the Cowboys had a really ground and pound offense. Yep. That could really beat up on the defense, and they could rely on it, and it would set up the passing with the play-action pass. I think that's what they got to go with. Who's their running back going to be this year?
Well, right now it's Deuce Vaughn, 5'6" Deuce Vaughn.
Yeah, well, they're going to have to do something about that.
I completely agree with you.
Maybe that's what they're going to do in the draft. They're going to get one of the better running backs there, but they've got the offensive line to be able to do it. They just don't. I don't know. That's what they've got to do. They got to get tougher. They got to be really physical on offense, and I think that would help Dak Prescott a lot. And when they got to the playoffs, it wouldn't put as much pressure on him. And they got to get a better game plan in the playoffs too. If they get to the NFC Championship game, and even if they lose it, if they haven't extended Dak Prescott, they'll lose him because another team will give him big money. I guarantee it. A bigger contract than Kirk Cousins got, who's on one wheel and is 5 years older than Dak Prescott. He got a 4-year deal. So. That's my thought.
Well, and I'm going to bring up the graphic right now. The Cowboys, and you're right, and I completely agree with you, because last season, while Dak did not suffer the amount of turnover problems that he has in the past that people clown him for, like, for instance, playing 12 games and somehow leading the league in interceptions last season, you're completely right about the rushing attack. He had Tony Pollard ran for 100 yards throughout the entirety of last season. One singular time.
And put too much pressure on Dak. He delivered in the regular season. He delivered in the regular season. The playoffs, they knew what was going to happen. They knew that the Cowboys couldn't run the ball.
Right.
They knew it was going to have to be a passing led offense for the Cowboys, and they were ready for it. And they lost.
Well, the numbers back you up, and everybody knows about Dak when it comes to the rushing attack. It helps him out immensely. In Dak Prescott's career, this is the record of the Dallas Cowboys and of Dak Prescott when they rush for 30-plus attempts or sub-30 and 100 or more yards or fewer than 100 yards, rushing yards. Yeah. We're talking about he has...
look at that, 30-plus rushes a game, 53-7.
He has single-digit wins when they rush for fewer than 100 yards. And this is a guy
I'd like to see that. I'd love to
2016.
see those stats for the playoff games that he's been in, what the rushing has been. I bet it's minimal, right? They haven't been able to run the ball. And been able to run it. You got to be able to do that. You have to be multidimensional if you want to go deep into the playoffs.
Right.
The Cowboys have not been that. They've relied too much on his arm, and the other teams knew it.
Well, and I think that Dak Prescott's rookie season, which was also Ezekiel Elliott's rookie season, that was probably the best season we've ever seen just as a collective group of the Dallas Cowboys. We're talking 13-3. Dak Prescott had 3,600 yards, 23 touchdowns, only 4 interceptions. And and that was also on nearly 68% completion percentage. And then Ezekiel Elliott, 1,600 yards, 15 rushing touchdowns. That balanced offense led them to the playoffs, and then they ended up losing to the Packers in the divisional round.
Has anyone picked up Elliott yet?
Not right now, and he is actually open to potentially returning to the Dallas Cowboys.
Really?
Which could be interesting because they booted him out of there last season.
Yeah.
And he actually was not bad with the Patriots.
I would have thought the Patriots would still pick him up.
He can
be had
Antonio
for
Gibson.
I think he can be had for a pretty reasonable salary.
I would probably
maybe that's
agree
why
with
he goes back to the Cowboys. We'll see.
Maybe,
be interesting. I think it'd be a smart move for the Cowboys to take him back, actually.
So to answer the question...
He's a tough player. He's tough.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
He fumbles occasionally, but
Yeah.
you know what? I can live with,
No, but he's
consistent
not
running
afraid
back too.
to hit it up in there
Right.
in the between the tackles.
I think he had, double-digit touchdowns the last 2 years when he was with the Cowboys. Just put him on the 3-yard line, give it to him, halfback dive, and just run right through the middle of the line. To answer the question, though, will this be Dak's last season? I'm saying yes if he thinks he's getting $59 million. I understand the Cowboys always...
You're hedging.
The Cowboys
Yes or
always
no?
fold. The Cowboys always fold.
Yes or no?
I'm saying this will be Dak Prescott's last year.
Ah.
Because I think, and rightfully so, Dak does have the upper hand. He believes he has all the leverage in this
He
situation.
thinks the deal's going to get done.
Which... There have been a couple reports saying that the Cowboys are not fully out on Dak, but in my opinion, if they're asking,
gonna cave.
If Dak's asking for $60 million, that's what, $5 to $7 million more than the top contract right now?
Well, that is a factor for sure. If he tries to overprice himself, then that could upset the deal.
And Jerry Jones said when he signed the extension, this past extension, Jerry Jones admitted Dak got him. They tried to wait him out. It didn't work. You had to pay him. Is Jerry Jones going to be that type of guy to double down on the same mistake?
I don't know.
12 wins, lose in the first round of the playoffs.
12 wins is a lot of wins.
I don't care about the regular season. It's the Dallas Cowboys, America's team, even though they haven't won a Super Bowl in 30 years. I mean...
They won a lot of games, though.
That doesn't matter.
Regular season.
Lamar Jackson's won a lot of games.
They've been
won 2 MVPs.
undefeated at home for a long stretch there. They had a nice record going there of wins at home. Fans love that. Go to the game. Our team's going to win. Have a few beers, sit in the stands.
And then the playoffs, you lose to the youngest team in the NFL. And I'll say this, by the way, I'm gonna quiz you a little bit. Who do you think has had a better performance totally in the playoffs between these 4 quarterbacks? Jared Goff, Jordan Love, actually, who has had the worst, I should say? Jared Goff, Jordan Love, Baker Mayfield, or Dak Prescott?
Has had the worst?
Had the worst set of playoff runs in totality. Playoff numbers,
It's probably Dak Prescott. Because you've been saying how bad he is in the playoffs. I would guess that's him.
Dak Prescott has the lowest touchdown to interception ratio, a 2-to-1. Everybody else is higher than 2-to-1. He has the second lowest yards per attempt. He has the second lowest touchdown percentage, the second highest interception percentage. Completion percentage is second out of the 4 quarterbacks. Yeah. Like, for instance, Jordan Love in only 2 games has looked better. Baker Mayfield has been a better playoff quarterback than Dak Prescott.
Has he been in how many playoff games has Dak Prescott been in?
He's been in 7. He's 2-5.
Seven playoff
Baker
games.
Mayfield's been in 4.
A lot of quarterbacks don't even get to the playoffs.
However, in 4 playoff games, Baker Mayfield's won 2. The same amount Dak Prescott has in 7.
Yeah.
Jared Goff's been to 9, and Jordan Love, this was his first 2.
What's Jared Goff's record?
Not
that great, right? Has he got a 500 record in the playoffs?
He is 4-4 in his career.
Oh, okay.
So he's 500. Better than Dak, though. Still better than Dak. All right, coming up, there's a lot to talk about. The Patriots. The de facto GM Eliot Wolf is apparently pushing hard for Michigan quarterback J.J. McCarthy. Also, the Jets are thinking about trading down after acquiring Haason Reddick from the Philadelphia Eagles. And finally, the NFL over-unders are here. We're going to predict the 3 teams that are going to be over their win total and the 3 teams that may be a disappointment and be under their given win total. We'll talk about all of that right after this.
Whether you're just discovering your voice or taking your show to the next level, You know what the world needs to hear. All you have to do is say it. With Spotify, set up your podcast. Your food podcast. Your mindfulness podcast. Your never thought you'd get this far podcast. And watch those sparks fly.
I put a picture of the comment.
Drop the episode anywhere people listen. And find out who they're cooking with. Where they're finding inner balance. And why they love your show. You're already a creator. Now you can create, connect, and get paid for your passion with one single free tool. Spotify for podcasters. Talk where the world listens.
Using Wi-Fi without NordVPN could mean sharing your private stuff with more people than you think. Stay safe on public Wi-Fi. Get NordVPN's special offer and encrypt your internet connection. NordVPN. Online security starts with a click.
Welcome back to the Harvey Hour. My name's Nathan Harvey. It is great to have you here on a Tuesday. Happy April, another month, and we're going to keep this show going. As always, I'm joined alongside my dad, Stephen Harvey. Let's get into our next topic. So the New England Patriots, after trading Mac Jones to the Jacksonville Jaguars, they have to figure out their quarterback situation unless they want to go with Jacoby Brissett, who they signed this offseason, or if they wanted to decide, you know what, let's bring back Bailey Zappi and have him start for us in 2024. However, de facto GM Eliot Wolf is accordingly pushing hard for J.J. McCarthy, Michigan quarterback J.J. McCarthy, for him to be drafted at the number 3 overall pick. Basically, and I'll read the quote now, Tony Pauline, who is a Kita consulting editor, NFL draft analyst, he said, I'm not big on McCarthy being a top 10 selection, but the UM signal caller to New England was the buzz at the pro day circuit. De facto GM Eliot Wolf is pushing hard for McCarthy, and he believes he has much upside as any other quarterback in this draft. Do you think McCarthy would be a good fit in New England with brand new head coach Gerard Mayo?
I think it's interesting now that McCarthy's getting so much press and getting so much hype that has moved him up into being one of the top 4 quarterbacks that are available in this draft. Kalen Williams, I think, will go 1. I think that Jalen Daniels is going 2 to Washington. That makes the Patriots have a big decision to make. Do they take the best player in the draft, in Marvin Harrison Jr., or do they pick one of those 2 quarterbacks, J.J. McCarthy or Drake May? And personally, I think they should take the best player in the draft. I think they should go with Harrison. But my gut tells me that that's probably not going to happen now, and I think they will go for a quarterback. If they're pushing really hard for McCarthy, good chance it's going to be him. If it were me, and the more I've read about the quarterbacks and the more I've been listening to what's been talked about, I would go with May. If you were desperate, you wanted to go for a quarterback, I'd go with Drake May. For some of the reasons I talked about when we talked about McCarthy being an interest of the Giants. He's been in systems that had great players. That reminds me of Mac Jones. He hasn't faced a situation where the offensive line is a sieve and you don't have any time to throw the ball. Although he is tops when he's outside, when the play breaks down and he's outside the pocket and he throws. He has a 71% completion percentage. But who's he going to throw it to on the Patriots? They haven't got any receivers that can separate. So I think it's a whole different situation there with the Patriots. It's going to be a tough offense again in 2024 because you don't fix all of that in one season. The wide receivers the Patriots have, right? So far they re-signed Kendrick Bourne.
I think that's a great signing.
Yeah, that's good. But and he was Mac Jones's number 1 receiver, go-to guy. But again, he had trouble separating. It wasn't like he was open all the time, and he didn't have that great of stats. They have Pop Douglas, who I like. I think is good, but he's a slot receiver. Really, he's not.
He's not going to line out wide and start burning people.
Yeah, it doesn't have that kind of burning speed. He is a good player, though. I give him some credit. And who else have they got besides those two guys? Well, who else is out there? They don't have a tight end.
I mean, you want me to say him? I'll say him. Juju Smith-Schuster.
Yeah, well, I said, who else is there?
Hunter. They brought back Hunter Henry.
Yeah.
They brought
So,
him back.
Drake May, a physical specimen,
That's true.
right? 6'4".
Yep.
He could take the punishment. He's got great athletic skills. I think I might go with him over if they're desperate for a quarterback. I think I'd go with him over McCarthy, and that would mean McCarthy would be there for the Giants.
I would say, when it comes to the Patriots and J.J. McCarthy, what are they looking for? Because their system has been very different since the last year of Brady, where Josh McDaniels had Brady's system. Everything was lined beautifully to how Brady liked to play. And then on the fly, late in the offseason, they had to go sign Cam Newton and figure out how to do a more mobile playbook. And that season, while Cam Newton started off pretty well, the rest of the season, there was the shock against the Baltimore Ravens beating them, but it wasn't a great season. It really was, the best thing about that was Cam Newton was one of the top rushing touchdown leaders in the NFL that year. And then you draft Mac Jones, and that's supposed to be the answer. I think he is the only quarterback with 70% completion percentage, 40 touchdowns, and 4,500 yards in a single college season. Some crazy number like that. He's maybe one of two or the only quarterback in college football history to do that. But he also had phenomenal talent. And the Patriots, that first year, they didn't have, we're not talking Jamar Chase and Justin Jefferson. They didn't have all these types of talents, but with Josh McDaniels, it looked pretty good. He had a great season. We're talking about a passer rating higher than Tom Brady and Josh Allen, a higher completion percentage than Patrick Mahomes and all these top quarterbacks. He played very well. And then coaching changes did not help, and, we started to see fractures in relationships and lack of communication between the head coach and Mac Jones. Now, this is a situation that's interesting because, like I said, I believe J.J. McCarthy is a system quarterback, and the numbers speak very true to that. Michigan was a ground-and-pound style offense primarily, with J.J. McCarthy being a supportive piece. Look at the national championship game. 170 yards. Blake Corum, Donovan Edwards both had tremendous, they had very, very good games. J.J. McCarthy, his college career, 155 passing yards on only 17 attempts per game. You're not really depending on him. The Patriots offense, Ramondre Stevenson was really good his rookie year. Then, due to injuries and just due to lack of production, he didn't look the same his sophomore season. So you don't have a top running back like a Christian McCaffrey or a Saquon Barkley or a Josh Jacobs. Ramondre Stevenson's an okay running back, but he's not going to be a guy who you're going to game plan for and say, okay, we have to fully eliminate the run like you would with any of those top running backs in the NFL. So you're going to need to rely on J.J. McCarthy more. And I think, honestly, Jaden Daniels is the pick if he's available at number 3. And this is where we get into the conversation of if he's not there, what do the Patriots do? I think if because of the situation, because of your team, I think if Jaden Daniels is not there at number 3, I would trade with the Vikings, let them get J.J. McCarthy. You could draft other Michael Penix, although I don't love his injury history. For me personally, trade back far enough. At 23, you could potentially get him. Or if you decide at 11, I'd go get Bo Nix. Personally, his experience and the fact that he's dealt with adversity. I believe he's played 5 seasons. He's had 5 different offensive coordinators each of those seasons and several head coaches along his entire college career. So that adversity is already present with the Patriots because it's a brand new defensive coordinator. It's a long-time offense coordinator, but brand new for the Patriots. They actually have a title of GM now. That's not the head coach. Now a first-time head coach that was within the system of the Patriots and played for the New England Patriots years ago. I would trade back if Daniels is not there. Daniels will be my first pick. Trade back if he's not there. Get an experienced quarterback. I believe he's, 24, 25 years old. You have that experience already there. You have a guy who in college, nothing was perfect. He didn't start off very well. I believe he started at Auburn and it didn't work out very well. He went to Oregon. All of a sudden, he's popping off with receivers that probably are not going to go at the top of the draft and could be 2nd, 3rd, and maybe even 4th round picks instead of an Ohio State guy like Marvin Harrison Jr. or Brian Thomas Jr. or Xavier Worthy. Any of these guys that are going to go top of the draft would Bo Nix had to deal with what he had there. We're talking about second, third, maybe even fourth round guys, which the Patriots, they have sixth round guys and guys who are broken. And then Kendrick Bourne, who I think really right now currently is the brightest shining star they have. That's what I would not go McCarthy. He hasn't needed to be depended on, and in the Patriots offense, that's what's going to happen.
Well, what about Drake May?
I think Drake May is going to fall. I don't like him personally.
Why?
I think you look at the scouting reports and you compare them to what the Patriots have already had. Now, I don't think unfortunately, I don't have them right in front of me, but basically what the scouting report said was tries to extend plays and then throws a head-scratching interception, stays in the pocket too long holding the ball, stares at his first read and locks into that read and only that read, gets confused if the coverage changes post-snap. That's literally what the Patriots have had for the past 2 seasons in Mac Jones.
No.
If you want and here's the thing. If you want a slightly better arm than what Mac Jones had, but still some of the same massive negative traits, draft Drake May.
Mm-hmm. And what about taking the best player in the draft and Marvin Harrison?
I
don't think Jalen Daniels is going to be there at number 3. I agree. If he is, then I think that's a no-brainer. You take him.
Right.
And trading down, maybe that makes some sense. I don't know. We'll see. But if Marvin Harrison, why wouldn't you take Marvin Harrison, the best player in the draft?
Because I don't want Bailey Zappi or Jacoby Brissett throwing him the football. I want a quarterback who's, I think Brissett did a very, very impressive job of filling in for when Deshaun Watson was suspended. And even when Sam Howell played horrible and he got benched, Jacoby Brissett played very well. And questioning whether or not Sam Howell will be benched for Brissett. So, and then if you don't want to go with Brissett, you have Bailey Zappi, who I don't think is a good quarterback, period. He's just not good. If you want to do an experiment and say how bad could the Patriots get, then yes, start him. Start Bailey Zappi. We're going to go, 5-12? 6-11 maybe if you really want to, if they have some lucky wins there.
I don't think they'd go that high. Probably, maybe they go win 4 games again, and then they're right up there at the top again, and they pick a quarterback next year.
You could, and I think honestly that's not a horrible idea, but I think Patriots fans, and because you're the New England Patriots, you've won 6 Super Bowls in this century, you have to start winning games at this point. And the only way you could do that is being stable in the quarterback position. And let's say the Vikings trade up to number 3. Let's say you get the 11 and 23 pick. You can get a first-round receiver and a quarterback in the same round, in the same draft. And you have all those other picks that you have in the draft to rely on to build up depth at offensive line, which you desperately need. Connor McDermott should not be your starting left tackle. He should not be. So Calvin Anderson should not also be on your starting lineup at a tackle. If he has to be, he has to be. But I would put Michael Wenu at starting right tackle. So, for me, if Jaden Daniels is not there, trade back because you can get, a lot of teams are very hungry for a starting quarterback. And one team in particular who needs a quarterback unless they want to roll with Sam Darnold. There's 2 first-round picks in this draft that could fill 2 major holes that you haven't filled. You could argue at those exact positions since 2007 when Randy Moss was there. And maybe A.D. Mitchell.
So you think that the
Texas,
Patriots could get both first-round picks of Minnesota?
Yeah. For the number 3 pick, you better be getting
both first-round picks.
Right, and my guess is you won't get the plethora of 2025 picks and maybe 2026 picks because you'll have the 2 first rounds and then maybe get a second or a third next year.
Depends on who's available at number 3. If it's a quarterback that the Vikings like, they'll probably make that pitch.
Supposedly the Vikings love Drake May. And if we go with what a lot of people are thinking, Jaden Daniels goes to the Commanders, it's a perfect situation for you to trade back. If you don't love Drake May, you have the number 3 overall pick. If you don't love a quarterback, do not draft him.
But don't you think that it's possible that Drake May could be there at number 11?
I'd be shocked.
Who's going to take him?
I would be very, very
Who's
shocked.
going to take him? The Giants will take McCarthy.
Well,
Caleb Williams will go first. Daniels 2.
Well, that's the thing. The Giants could go lineman, quarterback, or receiver. And that's a major question mark. But up until then, The Jets are looking to trade back, which we're going to talk about next. Chicago's not going to go quarterback again. Atlanta's not going to go quarterback. They just got Kirk Cousins on a 4-year deal.
So Drake may probably be there at 11.
He could, but you cannot bank on that. Because who knows? The Broncos might trade up. The Raiders might trade up.
That's true.
And even then, because the Jets are looking to trade back, the Broncos, and you have the 11th pick, the Broncos or the Las Vegas Raiders could trade to the Jets spot and take Drake May from you, the pick right before you decide you want him.
That's probably a possibility, a high possibility.
So it's risky. It's very, very risky to do because if Jaden Daniels there and you want him, you take him. You don't have the privilege unless you trade back into the first round to get a top tier receiver. People don't like Bo Nix for whatever reason. He didn't play. Yeah, he wasn't top tier like Caleb Williams. But his experience means something. He had a pretty good year this year. He's fought through adversity at college, OC after OC, head coach after head coach.
I don't see him in the first round.
Wow. Okay. Well, our mock drafts for the next 3 weeks are going to be very, very fascinating then. Let's talk about this. So the New York Jets could be looking to trade out of the first round, trade down in first round at least. They currently hold the number 10 overall draft pick, and ESPN's Rich Cimini reported over the weekend that the Jets are strongly considering trading down in order to acquire more assets, ideally from a team desperate to nab one of the top quarterbacks in the draft, like Drake May, Daniels, or even Caleb Williams if he, for some reason, decides to slip. He said, it probably won't happen, but he said, quote, what they'd really like is a trade proposal from a quarterback-needy team, which would allow them to acquire a top 100 pick. A handful of teams behind them, most notably Minnesota at the 11th pick, Broncos at the 12th, or the Raiders at the 13th pick, might be motivated to move up. It'll probably be contingent on the availability of Caleb Williams, Daniels, Drake May, or McCarthy. Problem is, it's unlikely one of them will slip to number 10. The Jets need Bo Nix to get so hot that a team wants to jump in the crowd for him. A team may also covet the Jets' pick as a part of a leapfrog plan to get a higher spot. Something like the Vikings we expect to be doing with trading with the Texans' pick to get number 23. So, do you think this would be a smart move by the front office of the Jets to trade back from the number 10 pick, especially with some of their offseason acquisitions like Tyron Smith, like now is trading for Haason Reddick? Is this a smart move for the Jets?
Yes. Yeah, I think they should trade down. They only have number 10 and number 72, right? They'd like to pick up at least one more player in the top 100, and they could get some foundational pieces if you get 3 players in the top 100. They're all in for this year. I mean, they're going out and picking up all these players that have talent. Some of them are injury prone.
Correct.
But they're all in. They've got Aaron Rodgers for this year. They're going to try to get deep into the playoffs by picking up a lot of journeyman people that have had good years, and hopefully they've got one really good year left in them. And they're not going to pick a quarterback, that's for sure. They're going to trade down. They're going to have 3 picks in the top 100 and use those to strengthen other holes that they have in both the offense and the defense.
In my mind, this would not be a good idea. I completely understand the logic, and it makes sense. For a team that, hasn't had much success drafting offensive pieces and quarterbacks and such like that, acquiring a lot of pieces might be a good idea if you needed them. The Jets have literally gone all in. Their defense, their defensive line, Javon Kinlaw, John Franklin Myers, Quinnen Williams, Haason Reddick, linebackers, C.J. Mosley, Quincy Williams, defensive backs, Sauce Gardner, Chuck Clark, DJ Reed. Their defense is incredible. It was already number 4 last season, and now it could be number 1. I mean, this defense on paper is incredible. And not only that, you also have reserves like Jermaine Johnson and Solomon Thomas, who are not bad at all. Now, they lost Bryce Huff, who was a very, very good part of that defense. But you got Haason Reddick, who you could argue might be better. What they do need, though, and you could argue depth at offensive tackle, which could be the case in number 10, draft any one of the draft whatever the best offensive lineman is at the number 10 spot. But for me personally, you can go 2 ways with this. Get a top receiver to be your wide receiver 3 or wide receiver 2, or in case Mike Williams ends up getting hurt, which based on the history, we obviously don't expect that or hope for that, but based on the history, chances are he'll probably get hurt. He's incredibly injury prone. Or you could just use him as a wide receiver 3-piece, the rookie receiver, to have a very good wide receiver 1 in Garrett Wilson, a very good piece in number 2 with Mike Williams, and then a very promising piece with Aaron Rodgers at quarterback at number 3, whether that be any one of the top receivers, if Rome Odunze drops to number 10, if Malik Neighbors somehow is number 10, depending on how the Bears decide to draft with the 9th pick, and then you also have Breece Hall on the offense. With my 10th pick, I think they can go 2 ways. Like I said, offensive tackle, or I'd go Brock Bowers, tight end from Georgia, because all you have really is Tyler Conklin. Imagine an offense with Rodgers, Breece Hall, Garrett Wilson, Mike Williams, Tyler Conklin, and offensive line being Tyron Smith, John Simpson, Joe Tippmann, Elijah Vera Tucker, and Morgan Moses. Would that not be one of the top offenses in the NFL? Screw the AFC only. How about the top in the NFL? And then compile that with the defense that was number 4 last season. And let's hope Aaron Rodgers stays healthy. That's why I said when we talked about it, was it last Tuesday or the Friday before last, was this team could seriously compete for the Super Bowl. And I expect a deep playoff run. Because the way the Jets are being built right now is really nothing we've seen, at least for an incredibly long period of time. We haven't seen the Jets decide to basically hit on a lot of pieces. So if you're telling me, and let's say we go with the Brock Bowers pick, that the Jets could have an offense like Aaron Rodgers, with Aaron Rodgers, Breece Hall, Garrett Wilson, Mike Williams, and all these guys stay healthy.
That's a big question mark.
Tyron Smith, John Simpson, Joe Tippmann, Elijah Vera Tucker, and Morgan Moses. You're telling me that won't be one of the best offenses in the NFL?
Well, they never played together, so there's a chemistry aspect to it, too. We'll see how they gel.
That is true.
We'll see how they gel and if they can stay healthy. If they can gel and stay healthy, then you might be right.
And then
so who do you have them taking at 10 then if they keep the pick?
There's 2 ways they can go. Off the best offensive lineman in the draft, whether it be center, offensive guard, offensive tackle, whatever, because Tyron Smith's only on a 1-year deal, and he's aging as well. Morgan Moses, health could be a little bit of a concern there, because we've seen a lot of the Jets offensive linemen deal with injury problems. You can go that way, or go Brock Bowers, because Tyler Conklin is your, and Tyler Conklin's not horrible, but having a very, very promising tight end like what we've seen with Brock Bowers, I mean, that offense, there's like, who are you going to eliminate in that offense?
Mm-hmm.
If you eliminate Breece Hall, you have three maybe 4 very decent to very good offensive receiving weapons.
Okay, but what if they traded with the Vikings? Then they would only be 1 pick down.
Okay.
Right? And they know the Vikings are going to take a quarterback, so the offensive lineman's going to be there at 11, and they pick up another first-round pick at 23. Why wouldn't they do that?
I don't know if you'll get both first-round picks in this draft for the 10th. You're only moving up 1 spot if you're the Vikings. If you move up, let's say...
But their quarterback is there. If their quarterback that they want is there.
Right. But
and it's likely might be Drake May.
Well, here's the thing. The only reason you would trade up is if you think the Broncos and Raiders are going to trade with the Jets. Because the Jets are not going to go quarterback at 10. Aaron Rodgers talking about 2 to 4
I don't
more
think they'd
years.
go quarterback anyway.
Right. That's my... The only reason the Vikings would trade up, or any one of... it would be the Vikings. The Vikings would trade up is because they're afraid the Raiders and Broncos will trade up into the 10th spot.
Yeah.
Or even if we're talking about it...
It depends on which quarterback is still available, I think.
So
who the quarterbacks are that are available.
So let's do this hypothetical.
It's only going to be it's probably going to be Drake May, unless the Patriots take him.
It would be McCarthy or May most likely.
I don't think it's McCarthy because I think the Giants are going to take him.
Okay. So if you're then it would be Drake May then would be the quarterback. What we've seen the Vikings say is that they adore Drake May.
Yeah.
And that's what I said. The only reason you would trade up is if you're afraid the teams behind you are going to beat you to it. Which is what we saw the Jets actually deal with last draft with the Pittsburgh Steelers. They were looking at offensive linemen. The Steelers jumped them, and then they kind of got screwed over. And
if the Patriots take a quarterback, then this is all conjecture because then all 4 quarterbacks will be gone.
Then you would be stuck with Bo Nix and Michael Penix.
That's right.
Which even then...
I don't think you trade a first round pick for one of those guys.
Well, even then... The Broncos literally have nobody. They got Jarrett Stidham for a quarterback.
Yeah.
The Raiders, Antonio Pierce seems okay with Aiden O'Connell. And even if he's not truly okay with it, they have Gardner Minshew, who wasn't too bad last year.
No, he wasn't. He was good.
So if I'm the Jets, I'm staying at 10. Unless
Jameis Winston's still out there.
Oh God.
He
Unless
played well for Sean Payton.
unless you're telling me the Jets, or rather, if I'm the Jets, I'd stay at 10 unless the Vikings are honestly not the brightest and say, no, we're going to give you both first-round picks in this year's draft.
That would be a steal.
If they're willing to do that, don't even worry about, because you're going to draft Brock Bowers or an offensive lineman at number 11 anyway. Say, okay, sure, we'll take it. Don't even worry about 2025. Just take whoever you can at that point. So, I don't know. It's going to be a very, very interesting situation as the
Can't
draft
wait for
gets
that
closer.
draft. It's coming up soon.
We have 23 days, a little above 3 weeks. But speaking about it, let's jump a little bit farther to the NFL season. The over-unders for the 2024-2025 NFL season have been released, and boy, it is going to be an interesting situation because there are some shocking teams that have some shocking numbers next to it. Let's start with you actually on this. So let's start with the AFC. These are the over-unders. Sorry for the podcast audience. You can check it out on youtube.com/@the Harvey Hour. Let's start. We're gonna alternate. So let's start with the overs. Your first over out of the entirety of the AFC. Who do you have going over?
I have the Texans.
Texans. Over. So you're more than 9.5 wins.
Yeah, I think they'll get to 10.
10 wins.
Yeah, they had 10 last year. I think they'll do it again. They had their offense very good last year, 27.5 points. Defense very good as well. Only gave up 20.8 actually. So, that's a winning average. I think they've got a good chance to be over 9.5.
For me, my first over is the New England Patriots because they're 4.5.
Yeah.
They're 4.5, and you're telling. And by the way, now that there's an entire new regime in for the Patriots, there's none of this trading back or my draft picks are going to be cornerbacks or tier 2 defensive linemen to bolster my defense just to say, I'm a defensive coach. See, my resume is my defense is always great. You now have a brand new head coach. You actually have a legitimate GM now. Not only that, you have actual named positions, OC and DC. So now that there's a brand new regime and you have the number 3 overall pick, you brought back some of the key playmakers in your team. Now, people who say they're not all that great in the grand scheme of things, they have shown efficiency. Kendrick Bourne was a very, very underrated piece for the New England Patriots. And now, because they have a top 3 pick in the draft, you have an opportunity to trade back, get a lot more draft capital if you want, or draft a top quarterback in the draft, or in your case, draft whatever the best player is at the time, whether that is Jaden Daniels or whether that's Marvin Harrison Jr. I'm saying the Patriots go over 4.5. My guess would be they go 6-11 and start rebuilding for the future from there.
Okay.
Your number 2 for going over.
In the AFC, I would say the Ravens will be over.
Over 11.5.
I think they can win 12.
12 games.
I think they win 12 games. They managed to do it last year, so why wouldn't they this year? They have one of the best offenses in the league, and they have one of the best defenses as well. They blew it in the playoffs, of course, but losing to the Chiefs is not that shabby. And they have Lamar Jackson, one of the elite players in the NFL. They're going to strengthen themselves through the draft. So I don't know why they can't get to 12 wins. So I have them as an over.
For me, I'm going to agree with you. My number 2 I had is the Houston Texans. I think this team, hands down, in the AFC South, which was surprisingly poor, I think. The Titans fell completely flat on their face. The Jaguars dealt with injuries to Trevor Lawrence and just weren't overall very good offensive line. The offense was surprisingly anemic. And then the Colts were just surprising because Anthony Richardson played very well but got himself injured a couple times. Gardner Minshew had, some very, very impressive spurts, but overall they weren't all that great. I'll have the Texans winning between 10 and 11 games, but I will take them for the over at 9.5. Your final over in the AFC. Who do you got?
I got the Bengals. I think they'll win 11 games. I think Joe Burrow will be back. He'll be healthy. He's going to be very hungry. He had a very disappointing season last year. Very disappointing for him. Depressing, I'm sure. He felt sitting over there on the sidelines, watching them lose like that when they were one of the picks to make it to the Super Bowl. They're going to be hungry, and they have when he's in there, and they have their weapons out there with Chase and Higgins. I think and their running back is Mixon.
No, Mixon's gone. Mixon's gone.
Mixon's gone. Well, I still think they'll wind up with a good running back. They have a decent offensive line. Their defense is credible. So I think they're going to get to 11 wins.
Zach Moss is their running back, by the way.
Zach Moss. Not too shabby.
My final over, and maybe I'm crazy, and maybe my mindset is maybe a year late. I'm going with the New York Jets at 9.5. I'm thinking they go over. I'm saying they win 11 games, and I think, honestly, truthfully, what I've been saying since the acquisition of Mike Williams is I think they're competing for the AFC East title this time. It's been, since 2008 they won the AFC East? Back, when Matt Castle was the quarterback for the Patriots, and I believe that was the last time. But it's been a very, very long time since the Jets were at the top of the AFC East. So my guess is with the way this team is constructed, with the way that they're going all in, I really see no scenario unless we see cataclysmic injuries across the board. The Jets cannot be over 9.5 wins. I'll have them winning probably 11 games this season. So that is my over-under for the AFC, or my over, rather, for the AFC. Let's go with the unders for the AFC now. What is your first under in the AFC?
I have the Colts under.
8.5.
Yeah. I think I don't think they're going to get there with Richardson out there. He's really still going to be a rookie. He didn't play enough before he got hurt, so he has enough experience to consider him a veteran now. So I think he'll come back, and I don't think he'll be any better than Gardner Minshew was for the Colts, who really stepped up and helped them get to the playoffs last year. So their offense last year, 23.3 points a game. The defense gave up 24.4, so they didn't even break even. They had 9 wins last year, so I think they win 8. I don't think that's 8.5, so I got them under.
Okay, so my first under, maybe that shocks a lot of people. I'm going with the Buffalo Bills. They had too many cap casualties on defense that I genuinely think will hurt them in the very long run. Not only that, you lost Gabe Davis. Now, can you get an okay number 2 receiver in the draft? Of course you can. The Vikings did it, so why can't the Bills do it? And maybe they will. But I think just with the fact that you literally got rid of some of your best defensive pieces because you needed to for cap purposes. 10.5 wins. I think it's going to be very, very difficult to hit the 11 mark. I think this team is going 10-7 or could very well go 9-8. That could be on the cards depending on how this defense actually performs when it's all said and done. Von Miller, they gave a massive contract. The production out of that contract is essentially zero. So in my mind, personally, I think the Bills, we're looking at a relatively, when it's 10-7 is not a horrible record, but I think when we actually take a look at this team, I think Josh Allen's going to go back to having to carry this team. Sean McDermott's going to be depending on Josh Allen to try his very best to win each and every game, because we're going to see a lot of disappointments. And I think James Cook has become a very, very good running back. We're going to see times where it's going to be Josh Allen or bust. He's going to make some stupid play where he rolls out to the right and just heaves it to an interception because he feels like he has to make a game-saving play. Maybe because Gabe Davis is not there. How much help is he going to get? Stephon Diggs, their relationship, while they always say the right things to the media, what we see on the field doesn't exactly speak to that. So my guess is the Bills here, they're going to be under 10.5 wins, maybe shock the world at 9-8 or 10-7, but that is my first under. Your number 2 for the AFC for under is?
I have the Chiefs. I think they win 11 games.
Okay, so not that
11
far.
and a half. Right.
Yeah, not that
I think
far.
it's close. I mean, last year they had a stretch where they didn't play very well in the regular season. I still pick them to be a Super Bowl contender and perhaps win it. They're going to go for the three-peat. They're going to be really pumped for that. But they've seen, and they know that they can turn it up in December and in the playoff series. So in the regular season, I see them. I think they could lose 6 games. So I still think they win the division because I don't think there's much behind them in that division that's going to challenge them. So I think they win 11 games. So I have them under.
For me, and this might be a little bit surprising, I'm going with the Pittsburgh Steelers. I think they're under 8.5. Russell Wilson needs all the help he can get at this point, and that comes primarily from the rushing attack. So the Steelers have been average to slightly above average the past couple seasons in running the football. But here's the situation, is that Russell Wilson can't do average. He can't do poor. He needs to have a top-tier rushing attack in order to help him. By top-tier, I mean he has to be at least within the top 3, maybe depending on the team around him, could stretch it out to maybe top 5. But having the 16th or the 13th best running attack won't cut it for a quarterback like Russ, who played it super safe with the Broncos last season, and when they depended on him and needed to let Russ cook, we saw what that looked like, and we thought that he was washed, completely washed. And maybe, if he does get that bad, we'll see Justin Fields out there starting for the Pittsburgh Steelers. And that, I think, may be worse. So I think, while it's been a nice long run for Mike Tomlin, was it 17 seasons without a losing record? I think this time with Russell Wilson, sadly, who people still think is a Hall of Fame quarterback, Russ will be the reason why Mike Tomlin no longer keeps up that streak of having consecutive winning seasons, or rather seasons without a losing record. I have the Steelers under 8.5. I say they go below 500.
Mm-hmm. That's interesting.
You're number 3 for under in the AFC.
I have the Raiders.
Okay.
Yeah, I think they aren't going to be able to get a quarterback. I think they're too far down there in the draft. They don't have the pieces to move up. I think Aiden O'Connell is he's below average. I don't think he's going to be an elite quarterback in the NFL. You have Pierce, their head coach. They picked him. He stepped in halfway through the year, and he did well. But I think a lot of it had to do with McDaniel just being so bad. And once they got rid of him, it was a burst of energy for the team, and that little wore off a little bit later on. So the Raiders have been mediocre to poor for quite a few years now. They're playing in Las Vegas now, and they have a beautiful stadium, but I'm afraid they're not going to have a beautiful record. Going to be less than 6.5, probably 6.
6 wins, okay. My last under is the Baltimore Ravens. I think with some of the losses that they've had, primarily at offensive linemen's going to hurt them, and not only that, some of their defensive pieces also. I think this team, and especially with Joe Burrow coming back in the AFC North and going to be healthy in the AFC North, I think we'll see a much more competitive field where they'll be back and forth. And my guess is we're not talking about, cataclysmic drop. 11 wins is still nothing to be disappointed with. But I just think overall, and because of just the injury history of the Baltimore Ravens in totality, I think it's going to be difficult to see this team winning 13 games or 12 games. Because I think, honestly, Lamar Jackson, and maybe I could be completely wrong with this, but I think with Derrick Henry, where does he find his success? Late in the game when he's run it 20 times or more. That's where he gets his yards per carry numbers way up. And Lamar Jackson, who's been a mobile quarterback for his entire career, even in college, I think that's going to be sort of competing with one another. Will Lamar Jackson lose some of his, running and escapability and sort of remove himself from, that threat? Teams won't be as threatened to put a QB spy on him, maybe, because they have Derrick Henry and they'll just feed him the ball. That could be the case. Or is Derrick Henry not going to have the same amount of production because Lamar Jackson's running the football? And like I said, Derrick Henry finds his success, at least in yards per carry, late in the game when he's run it 15, 20, 25 times. That's where he sees the most amount of production. So my guess is the Ravens, they'll win 11 games. That's nothing to be upset about. 11 games, maybe 10 if you deal with cataclysmic injuries. But hey, like I said, 11 wins, nothing to be disappointed about there, especially when you have Joe Burrow in your division. Let's go to the NFC now. So this one, it's a lot more 10-win teams, and some of those are shocking. I want to know the first. Let's go back to the overs now. First over in the NFC for you.
The first over I have is the Dallas Cowboys. They scored 29.9 points a game last year in the regular season, only gave up 18.5. They had 12 wins. They're only counted on here to get 10.5. I think they win at least 11. And I think that Dak Prescott's going to be playing for a contract maybe. You have the defense coming back, as it was pretty much. It was very good with a new defensive coordinator. We'll see how that. Who did they pick for their defensive coordinator? Do you remember? Or have they picked somebody yet?
Who?
The Cowboys.
Yes. Was it Vic Fangio, I believe?
Oh, okay. So
Yeah.
he's a name. So I think the Cowboys, again, win. I think they're going to win 12 games again for the fourth season in a row. So to me, this is a pretty easy over pick.
My over, and maybe this will change. So I think get your bets in now. My first over pick is the Minnesota Vikings, because I think the reason why it's this low is they don't currently have a quarterback. They're gonna draft one, and I think no matter who they draft, we're gonna see success because they have Aaron Jones, they have Jordan Addison, they have T.J. Hawkinson, they have Justin Jefferson. All you need is a quarterback there. Sam Howell being the quarterback, I can understand why it's 6.5. But if we're talking about drafting a quarterback, which will most likely happen, this team could be a 7, 8, maybe 9 to 10 win team, depending on how good the quarterback plays within that offense. The defense still scares me, but even then, maybe depending on how good the offense is, you could sort of pull like an Indiana Pacers version in the NFL where you're just trying to score more than you let up, and maybe that works, maybe it won't. But I think, as soon as you draft the quarterback, that number is probably going to hit the 7.5 to maybe even 8.5 number once you get, there could be Drake May if you trade all the way up, or it could be you settle and go with a Bo Nix or a Michael Penix. But I think right now, get your bets in, Minnesota Vikings over 6.5 wins. Your number 2 when it comes to the over in the NFC is?
I agree with you, the Vikings. I think that they've got a lot of talent on offense. They can bring the rookie quarterback in there, and they'll get one, right? They're going to get somebody. They can trade up to get one of the top 4, likely, and that's probably their plan. I think putting a rookie in there with all that talent, I think they could get to 7 wins. I don't think they're going to be a playoff team, but I do think they could get to 7 wins, particularly in their division, which has the Bears in it.
That's true.
So, I agree with all the reasons that you just described. So I won't say any more.
My next over is the Los Angeles Rams. Now people are scared, I think, because Aaron Donald retired. But I think what we're going to see in this draft is they're going to go defensive lineman, and linebacker most likely in their first few picks in this draft to try to replace Aaron Donald, which is impossible to do. You can't replicate what Aaron Donald did and have the same amount of production. In a down year where Aaron Donald wasn't as dominant, he's still at 8 sacks. And 8 sacks as a defensive tackle, I think that's still very impressive because you're getting double and sometimes, at least in Aaron Donald's case, triple teamed, and he was still able to produce at a decently high level. Lower than obviously his peak, but still at a very, very good level. So my guess is the Rams are going to focus a lot on defense because their offense with Puka Nacua and Cooper Kupp and Kyrie Williams and Matt Stafford, that was a good offense. That was a very good offense. Kyrie Williams, incredible production. Puka Nacua, tremendous receiver. Cooper Kupp had 1,900 yards 2 years ago. I mean, the offense is really, really good. I think we're going to see a similar production from the offense at 8.5. I think that's completely underselling them, just like they did last year when they were 6.5 over under and they won 10 games. And I said they'll win 10 games and make them at least 10 games and make the playoffs. So I'm going to go with the Rams here at 8.5. I'm taking the over. Your final over pick for the NFC is?
My final over pick is the 49ers.
11.5.
Yeah, I think they'll win 12 games. They scored 29, almost 30 points a game last year. They only gave up 17.5. Brock Purdy, another year under his belt. They have Christian McCaffrey. They have all the offensive tools with the wide receivers. Ayuk and Debo Samuels and what's the tight ends?
George Kittle.
George Kittle. So
yeah.
I see them having the talent. They got Bosa on the defense, and the defense is strong. They unfortunately in the Super Bowl, the linebacker there, what was it? The guy that got hurt? Drake Greenlaw. If he'd stayed healthy the whole game, could have been a different outcome. And they had the lead twice there, fourth quarter and in overtime, managed to lose it because the defense couldn't hold them. So I see the 49ers winning at least 12 games.
I think for me, and this might shock a lot of people, I'm going to go, my final over pick is the Carolina Panthers at 4.5 wins. You can't get much worse than 2-15 with the number 1 overall quarterback pick last year.
Yeah, he may be a bust.
And here's when I said that we're not going to see the same exact thing, but we could see a slight improvement with Dave Canales being the head coach of the Panthers now, and I think we should see an improvement in Bryce Young with Canales, because look at what he did with Baker Mayfield. Not only that, they got Deontay Johnson, the wide receiver. They still have Adam Thielen. Jonathan Mingo's not horrible. The offensive line needs a lot of work. I think Bryce Young had a very, very difficult time under pressure. Miles Sanders went from having a great offensive line in Philly and producing at a very high level, had a 1,200-yard season that last year in Philly, to being downright horrible in Carolina. I had him on my fantasy team, and it was a pain, believe me. And then you also have Chuba Hubbard, who, is not a half bad running back. He's not an elite. He's not terrible, but he's not, he's not bad. He's okay. He's not bad at all. So 4.5 wins. I think they can go 5 wins here. It still isn't good, still isn't great, but it can. I really don't think it can get much worse than 2-15. With the number one overall pick in last year's draft as your quarterback, with a head coach that made Baker Mayfield a Pro Bowler and took him and made him look in that playoff game against the Philadelphia Eagles, made him look like maybe an all-pro in that game. So 4.5, I'm going with 5 wins for the Carolina Panthers in 2024. Your first under now in the NFC
My
is...
first under is the Falcons.
I agree with you with this one.
Yeah.
That's also
Come
my
on,
first
what are they
one.
thinking?
Yeah.
I mean, the Falcons, they only scored 19 points a game last year. They gave up 22, so they were negative there. They only won 7 games. They're bringing in Kirk Cousins, a brand new quarterback. They have a brand new head coach, too.
Yeah.
And they think they're going to win 10.5 games? I don't think it's going to happen. I think that it's overhyped for Cousins. They do have a very good running game. They do have some good pieces on defense. They have a decent offensive line, but I don't think it gets them 11 wins, which is what you got to get to 10.5, right? You got to get 11 wins. So that's going to happen. I just don't see it.
Well, and I'm going to agree with you about everything you said. And also, their schedule is not exactly the easiest around as well. They're in this upcoming season, they have to play the Chiefs, Chargers, the Saints, who I think might not be terrible. Obviously the
Saints twice.
The Saints twice. The Eagles as well. They play the Bucks, who people think is going to be a great team. The Vikings, depending on what their quarterback situation is, their schedule is not the easiest. The Cowboys as well. They do not have a particularly easy schedule. And let's say they lose to the teams we expect them to lose to. So the Cowboys, Chiefs, Chargers, I think people are going to be expecting. Eagles, I think they're going to lose to because they won't be bad. The Vikings, I think the Vikings are going to be a tough team. That's 5 losses right there. You literally have essentially you have 1 loss that you could lose and still be in that range. Outside of that, you're screwed. If you lose 2 games, that's it. It's the under right there. And Kirk, and you better hope that those games are at 1 p.m. Because if they're outside of 1 p.m., we know what Kirk Cousins is. And God forbid they're in prime time, which I guarantee you some of these games, if they're the Cowboys, Chiefs, or Chargers, they will be. They absolutely will be. So I'm going with, and 10 wins is not bad. It's not bad at all. But to say that this team's going to win 11 or more, it is the worst division.
Well, they only
football.
won 7 last year.
Right. Well, that's because they had Desmond Ridder, who's a...
Okay, but, does that get you 4 more wins in one season with a brand new head coach? I think they've made a mistake here.
Well, we agree. The Falcons, I think 10 wins with Kirk Cousins is not bad. He's coming off an Achilles injury, so that we also have to put that into play as well. Yeah. Let's go with the next one. Your next under, since
the Giants. I think the Giants. I think they're going to be terrible.
6.5.
I think they're going to be. I think they're going to be terrible. I think they win 5 games.
Wow.
Max, and maybe 6, but they're not going to win 7. So I think they're going to be. Their offensive line, it didn't seem like they've done a whole lot there. They weakened themselves dramatically at running back. The best player on the team is gone. Daniel Jones is coming back off a ACL injury. Generally, it takes a quarterback a good part of a year to get back in the groove there. He's only been in the groove once in 5 years, so chances are he'll never get back in the groove.
And
their
also
defense,
had to deal with the neck injuries.
Their defense could be pretty good. They could probably have the best defensive line, one of the best defensive lines in the league. But I don't see it. I think Brian Daboll's job is in jeopardy here, and I have him under.
For me, and I know people are not going to like this, I had the Tampa Bay Buccaneers at 8.5. I think they're going to take the under with that one. And I think basically we've seen it several times over. Once you get that big payday, your play tends to regress because if you're looking to get paid massive amounts of money, you'll play significantly harder and you'll just perform better because you're playing for something. Baker Mayfield and this is not a bash on Baker. He played extremely well last season because he was humbled, because maybe Dave Canales as his OC did something. And we already saw with Jalen Hurts and even kind of with Justin Herbert, if you lose your OC that helped you and made you look great and you lose that piece, you don't look the same. You can't keep up that same level of production with the new OC. So I think it's going to be a little bit difficult for Baker to maintain that type of rhythm. And yes, the Tampa Bay won 9 games last year. So you're basically saying, can Tampa do it exactly the same way? I'm going to go with no, because they almost nearly lost to the Carolina Panthers late in the season. They won 9-0. 9-0. I don't see them doing that again. I'm going with the Bucs win 8 games. They go 8-9. Baker regresses slightly. The team regresses slightly. You lost your OC. I don't think you can keep up that same type of production. Bucs win at least 8 games. They win max 8 games. I'm taking the Bucs with the under with that one. The next one, your final under for the 2024-2025 NFL season pick is
The Bears.
Ooh, yeah. Caleb Williams though.
Yeah, but he's a rookie. He's a rookie, and they've got him at 8.5 wins. And the Bears traditionally don't win any games, hardly, right? Last year they won 7. They scored 21.2 points a game, and they gave up 22.3, so they were negative there. I don't see that their defense is going to be any better than it was last year, and their offense could be a little worse. I mean, Caleb Williams, it's a crapshoot, right? I mean, he's a very talented guy. But there's some question marks with any rookie. You don't know how he's going to perform. So I see them under 8.5. I don't see how they get to 9 wins.
I'm going to go with the Cardinals with my final pick.
6.5.
6.5 wins, yeah. I understand they're probably going to go Marvin Harrison. That's my guess. Or they trade back, they'll get some sort of receiver. That's what my guess would be. They want to accumulate picks if they want to trade back. But I think Kyler Murray isn't a phenomenal. I don't think he's a great quarterback really at all. Regardless of who the talent's out there, their defense is going to be lackluster again, I believe. And their offensive line still needs a little bit of work. You have Paris Johnson. You have a couple nice pieces, but overall, the team as a whole is not great. So if you win 6 wins, that's probably what I'm going to expect you to do, because we saw a relatively healthy Kyler Murray, and he performed very, very poor. Now, was that just the poor head coach? Maybe. That might have been the case. Cliff Kingsbury wasn't the best of head coaches, but they did just have back-to-back 4-13 seasons with Kyler Murray. The last time we saw him play an extended period of time, he went 3 of 11 for 2,300 yards, 14 touchdowns, and 7 picks. This is a guy who had a promising beginning, not a great middle, and it could be a very abrupt end depending on how the Cardinals perform in these next couple years. But he did get a massive contract, and we saw a regression in play. He's another example of a guy who we've seen regression in play after getting paid. So my guess is the Cardinals win at max 6 games. I'll take the under for the Cardinals with that. And that wraps up our over-under picks for the entirety of the NFL, or at least 6 in each conference for over and under.
Save this.
Yeah.
We're going to come back to see. We'll come back to it at the end of next season.
Yeah. Why not? We have some extra time. Reaction to the Red Sox season so far after their 9-0 win last night against the
Better
Oakland
than expected.
Really?
Yeah. 3-2. Right? The ERA of the pitching staff, probably the best in the American League right now.
Last time I checked, they were number 2 in the entire MLB.
Wow.
They have a little bit over a 2. Now I don't know if that changed. I'll look it up right now, but yeah, no. Keep going with your reaction.
They got the. Looks like they may have the offense again this year, right? They scored 9 runs last night, but they're playing Oakland.
Yeah.
Oakland, my God, they're off to a terrible start. Right?
They normally are.
Yeah.
They have the number 1 ERA in the MLB.
Yeah. So
1.42. It's
amazing.
Yeah.
It's amazing. Can they keep that going? I don't know. I doubt it. I mean, I think their bullpen is going to be their Achilles heel.
Yeah.
Right?
Which was the opposite of last year.
Yeah.
Their bullpen was relatively good. It's just their starting pitching gave
they
up
had
5 runs.
Pivetta was in the bullpen last year. Now he's a starter. Whitlock was in the bullpen last year. Now he's a starter. So I think that those are holes, right? And 2 of the names that, I don't know, they'll be pulling people out of the bullpen you never heard of before, right? So they still have Jansen. So that's good. They have Smith. right? Those two guys are good, but besides that, I know they have the setup and the closer, but to get to them, they're going to have to get 6-7 innings out of the starters, and that's going to be. They weren't able to do that last year. Many teams can't anymore. 5 innings out of a starter is about as far as you go.
They're doing load management now, which is
load management. What happens is these pitchers, they throw 100 pitches before they get to the 5th inning. No, that's true. A lot of pitches thrown.
Yeah.
You know, before they even get to the 5th inning. So, you know, I mean, Nick Pivetta, he throws a lot of pitches. He does throw a lot of pitches.
He's a very erratic pitcher.
Yeah.
One day you'll see
he's good so far. His first start was very good. Whitlock's first start, excellent. Who started last night?
Hauk pitched very well.
Hauk, yeah. Tanner Hauk.
Hauk had a great outing last night.
Yeah.
Hitting, though. Yikes.
Hitting, I mean, they lost
Turner,
Justin Turner.
Also,
I think. Who's he playing for?
You don't like I think he's still a free agent.
He's not even signed?
I'm pretty sure you didn't like Duvall.
I did like Duvall. I like Duvall.
Oh,
is he signed by anybody?
I'm not sure. I'm not sure. Let's see. But the Red Sox are not going to.
I can't believe they didn't bring him back the way he hit home runs there down the stretch.
Braves.
The Braves. Yeah. Well, he used to play for them, right? He went back to them.
I mean, the Braves are a phenomenal team.
Yeah.
You
probably won't get much.
He
He won't be a starter there, probably.
I believe they're 17th in batting average right now.
Yeah, well, I mean, this is only 5 games played so far. So.
And I want to say, we bashed on him, what was it, 2 years ago? Jaron Duran. Not too shabby.
Yeah.
Yesterday, everyone went 3 for 5 with 3 stolen bases.
Yeah.
I mean, the Oakland Athletics are horrible. They are the worst franchise in the MLB right now. You have 5 errors, which I think mostly came
From
on
the
trying to catch people stealing.
Yeah.
Like you're sending it into the outfield when you're 45 feet from the base. It's bad. It is very bad. Some of them you're just trying to check them back on the bag and you're throwing it in the outfield.
Yeah.
It's embarrassing. No one. I mean, that's why Oakland fans boycotted going to the games. Why they forced them to move.
Do you think the Yankees will go undefeated this year?
No.
So far, they're undefeated.
I was going.
I mean, with Judge has even got a hit yet. I think maybe it's 1 hit so far.
They're 5-0.
But they have Sosa, man. He's something.
Yeah.
He's 9 for 17.
Juan Soto. I didn't think he'd be
Soto,
peaked, but he's playing better than I expected. A while ago, when I had my friend on for the show, he asked me about the Houston Astros, and I was up front. I don't fear them whatsoever. I do not fear them. They won their first game yesterday. They're 1-4, tied with the Oakland Athletics.
Yeah. Well, they're definitely going to step it up. I mean, the Yankees had their number in the first series, and they started the season with 4-game series. I hate a 4-game series.
Why?
I can't stand it because it usually winds up 2 apiece. A 3-game series, there's a winner and a loser, right? It's 2-1. It's got to be.
Yeah.
Right? So in a 4-game series, 2-2, to me, it's like it's a lot of frustration and, there's nothing redeemed or decided by a series that winds up even.
Yeah.
I don't like that.
And, some things never change. The Mets are winless. 2015 was their peak. They made the World Series, and then Familia choked 3 straight games. Daniel Murphy had the error at second base, and that was just they lost to the Kansas City Royals that year. And where are the Royals now? 1-3.
Right, 1-3, yeah.
It's bad. It's very, very bad.
Cleveland's off to a pretty good start, right?
They're 3-2.
Yeah.
The Tigers, they're 4-0.
Wow.
Well, at least this was from earlier today. So
I'll be watching the Red Sox, hoping, but I'm very skeptical. They were a streaky team last year, mostly bad.
That's true.
And they didn't have the pitching. Now they're off to a great start, number 1 in the MLB after 5 games. That's commendable, but it's a 162-game season, so I'll be watching.
Out of 7 games, how many home runs do the Dodgers have?
12.
Close, 11. 11.
No, Mookie Betts hit 4 home runs already.
That's crazy. And go
I mean,
back.
he had one in every game there until the last one. He went hitless in the last game, but he had a home run in every game. 4 games.
Go back 4 or 5 years. Look back at the trade now.
That was a mistake.
Not great.
It's a huge mistake by the Red Sox.
Some of the guys who you got in that trade are no longer on the team.
Yeah.
The last guy who was on there was what's his name? He went to the Yankees.
Verdugo.
And
they trade him to the Yankees?
Yeah.
How stupid. I mean, he's playing. He's a starter. He's a left fielder.
That's
right? He's going to I bet you he has a good season. He's going to be the batting lineup. He's not
having one right now. He's batting 167.
Okay, well, the batting lineup should favor him, though, right? I mean, there's a lot of good hitters in that lineup. He should be getting some good pitches to hit.
You would think.
I looked for him to have a decent season. Maybe off to a slow start right now, but again, it's a 162-game season, so we'll see.
Well, right now, Red Sox are surprisingly good. Yankees are undefeated. Mets have always remained horrible. And Houston, surprisingly, also looks terrible.
Yeah, well.
Things will change, though. Yeah. It's a 162-game season where, 5,
Come
6
back
games
in July. We'll see what the records are.
Probably still, the Red Sox, I think, are going to dip a little bit, but, we'll have to wait and see. But we thank you for tuning into this episode of the Harvey Hour. This will wrap it up. My name's Nathan Harvey. That's my dad, Stephen Harvey. Tune in Friday, 6:30 p.m. Eastern. We'll be back right here on YouTube.
Hi, Grandpa.
Using Wi-Fi without NordVPN could mean sharing your private stuff with more people than you think. Stay safe on public Wi-Fi. Get NordVPN's special offer and encrypt your internet connection. NordVPN. Online security starts with a click.